Using the right setup is crucial when trying to cast any sort of distance. Now, the majority of my fishing is probably done up to a range of about 80, 90 yards. And for those sort of distances, I'm happy to use what many would call an entry-level rod. But if I'm wanting to fish at 100 yards and then some, then I kind of bring out the big guns. And I've got here the Horizon XTK. Now, these rods aren't rated on a test curve. Instead, they're rated by casting weight. And these are designed for casting weights of 3 to 5 ounces. Now, you might be wondering what the difference is between this rod and a cheaper model. Well, it's basically the carbon. This carbon is much stiffer, much lighter and much crisper than a cheaper carbon would be. And that allows the rod to recover much faster. And by that I mean straighten much faster. And as that rod straightens after the cast, it reduces the friction as it exits on the tip ring. And that enables you to create extra yards on the cast. These rods also feature what they call K-series guides. It allows the line again to run through much more freely, and it also prevents the line from wrapping around the rings. And it's also got a large bore tip ring again, so the line can travel through much more freely. Now, this rod is balanced with a very lightweight reel. This is the 12,000 XT magnesium reel, very lightweight. It has a long spool and a slow oscillation, which means the line lay is absolutely impeccable. And again, that means reduced friction as it comes off the spool. But the end setup is very lightweight, and that really is key here, as that enables you to create much greater momentum and faster tip speed, which really is key for getting that lead travelling and moving faster and further. When casting extreme distances, the main line is being put under a massive amount of pressure, so it's important to use some sort of shock leader to prevent any crack-offs. Now, I would prefer to use a braided material such as the 45-pound armadillo. Because it's braid, it has zero stretch, and that means it's much easier to compress the rod. Now, I'd couple this with the 13-pound Exocet main line, which is a very fine diameter and also very supple, so it flies off the spool very easy and has virtually no resistance as it flies through the air. However, there are times when fishery rules may state that shock leaders or leaders of any description are not permitted. So in these instances, I would look to use a tapered main line. The Exocet is available on 12 to 35 or 15 to 35 tapered mainline. So what that means is when you're casting on a 35-pound line, so there's no chance of any crack-offs, and then that's tapered down to the normal line to give you the low diameter and low resistance as it travels through the air. When it comes to the end presentation, for casting any sort of distance, it's important to keep everything as streamlined as possible. And for that reason, I'd always look to use a chod rig or helicopter style setup. You see here we have a 4-ounce swivel lead attached directly to the main line. Weight forward casting lead. Yeah, this is 4 ounces, which I find complements the rod and my casting very well. But it's all about balancing it out to the setup you've got. If you're only using a 3-pound test curve rod, you might get away with just using a 3-ounce lead. Likewise, I think the casting weight can vary on the day. Some days I can cast a 3.5-ounce lead farther than I can cast a 4-ounce lead. So it might be worth just experimenting on the day what works best for you and what allows you to achieve the greatest distance. So here's the little chod section, and you'll notice here I've only got a small hook bait. That's a little homemade 12mm very buoyant pop-up. Now obviously if I was only casting sort of 100-120 yard, I could get away with a 16mm pop-up, but obviously a big hook bait like that is going to create a lot of drag as it travels through the air. So for that reason I've made up these extra buoyant little 12mm ones to minimise the drag and allow me to achieve a few extra yards on the cast. And that is basically it. I've just got a top bead there, a little tungsten bead on there just to keep everything all pinned down. And it's all very minimalistic but very streamlined, and that's what you want when you are trying to achieve those great distances. When it comes to baiting up at any sort of distance, there are two main means that I tend to employ. First of all, we have a throwing stick. Now I tend to use this if I want a spread of bait up to a range of about sort of 90 to 100 yards. Here we've got the Rangemaster carbon throwing stick. If you're going to be using it a lot, the lightweight carbon really is a lot more user friendly, and also this has a little loading port just above the grip, which means you can get into a nice rhythm and it maintains accuracy. But if I want to go a little bit farther out, or if conditions aren't favourable, if it's really windy and accuracy is perhaps being compromised, then it would be the impact spod. Now, because the impact spod can be filled to capacity, this ensures there's absolutely no wobble at all as it comes off the tip on the cast. Now that means it casts very straight and very true, but because there's so much weight forward, it also means it travels a long way. In fact, I can cast this as far as I can cast a baited rig. So no matter where I put that rig, I know I can bait up accurately around that. So there you have it. Those are the two baiting applications I use. It's all about choosing the right one on the right day, given the conditions. When going for those really big chucks, it can put a lot of pressure on your casting finger, and if you're not careful, it can kind of cut into the fingertip. So for that reason, it's important to use a finger stall. Not only does that protect your finger, but it also gives you that peace of mind that nothing's going to happen, you're not going to pick up any injury, and as a result, you do go into the cast a lot more confident and put in a lot more effort than you would normally. In any situation, accuracy is absolutely essential, but when fishing at long range, chances are you may be fishing beyond casting distance of your marker float. So in order to maintain accuracy, the best way I found of doing it is lining up with a far bank marker wherever the fish may be located, and then casting to there and then clipping up on the reel before wrapping it round the distance sticks. By placing the distance sticks 12 feet apart, you know that's 4 yards. Then you can wrap all the rods at that range accordingly, and also do the same with the spod rod to make sure you can get all the bait nice and accurate, all at the exact same distance. It's no good being able to cast a long way if a bite doesn't register at the angler's end. Now, when fishing any sort of distance, tight lines really are a must, although slack lines seem to be quite trendy and carpy thing to do at the moment. In terms of bite indication, they're actually very, very poor. And the farther you end up fishing, the further distance out you're fishing, then the more this becomes the case. So when fishing anything past 70-yard range, I would always incorporate a very tight line, and the best way to achieve this is by using the Springer arms. Now, they have a fiberglass arm that is constantly putting the line under tension. So even if you're fishing at 50-yard range, for example, if that line moves a few inches, it'll register back immediately at the angler's end. So these are the Black Label Springer arms I use for fishing with tight lines. And when you're going to be fishing at any sort of distance, it really is essential to use the right indicator setup in order to maximise bite indication. If you'd like to watch more videos from Fox Fishing TV, then click the link here. Or if you'd like to subscribe to the channel, then click the link here.